I have an app for that on my phone, actually. And I have a time of prayer and contemplation. I finish every day that way as well. Whether my husband is with me or not, and he travels with me a lot, but can't always travel with me, I then have a conversation with him, and we talk about what's going on in the family. And that grounds me, but I also honestly must say that every time I get out and meet the citizens of this nation, I am restored and energized, because people know what's wrong. You know what's wrong. And you actually know what has to be done. So much of this is just common sense and good judgment. And you're as frustrated as I am that it just never seems to get done. For 50 years it hasn't seemed to get done. And so that gives me a lot of energy, because we can fix this.
Absolutely. So getting into the VA specifically, 3 weeks ago, Hillary Clinton was on Rachel Maddow's show and said that she didn't feel like the VA scandal was as widespread as it's been reported, and that it was, Republicans were politicizing the issue for ideological reasons. Why would she say that it's not widespread, and how widespread do you believe it is?
Well, first, Hillary Clinton says many things. She said the purposeful terrorist attack in Benghazi was as a result of a video, and the media's let her get away with that lie. By the way, I've been calling her a liar about that for months and months and months. She said, she had this server arrangement in her basement because she didn't want to have more than one account on a device. And she said the VA scandal isn't as widespread as Republicans say. Look, here's the truth. When the scandal of the Arizona wait times burst onto the front pages of the papers, we learned to our horror that veterans were dying before they had received an appointment. And then we learned that bureaucrats in the VA were cooking the books so that nobody would find out. Now, by the way, there is good news in that horrible scandal, and here's the good news. The American people, the citizens of this nation, were so outraged by this revelation that they put enormous pressure on the political process in Washington, D.C. And what happened? The pressure was so intense, the political process responded. And in just a few weeks, this gridlocked Congress manages to pass, thanks to Concerned Veterans of America, in no small measure, a bill that says the 400 top senior executives of the VA can be fired for dereliction of duty. And President Obama signs it. It signs through the Senate. You see, citizens, pressure works. The sad truth, of course, is that, what do we think, 4 people have been fired? And meanwhile, we learned 2 months ago, maybe, that 307,000 veterans have died waiting for health care. No, Mrs. Clinton, this is not exaggerated. This is a stain on our nation's honor. And no amount of tinkering around the edges by politically correct politicians is going to solve this problem. We need top to bottom reform. And Concerned Veterans of America and the citizens of this nation are going to force top to bottom reform. Let me just say one other thing. I've said citizens have power. I'm going to use the common sense and good judgment of the American citizenry to force fundamental reform. How am I going to do that? Every single week, I'm going to go into the Oval Office, and I'm going to ask you to take out your smartphones. Technology is a marvelous tool, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, do any of you still own a flip phone? Okay, you can confess if you own one, I know. There are a lot of flip phones here in Iowa, but you have to upgrade, sir. Okay? You have 15 months, shop carefully. But the reason I say you have to upgrade is literally, I'm not joking about this, I'm going to go into the Oval Office and I'm going to ask you, do you think that we actually have to pass the Veterans Accountability Act? This is the next act you guys are trying to get passed, where you can fire anybody in the VA for dereliction of duty. Do you think we should do that? because politicians need pressure. What I will ask you to do is, if you agree this needs to be passed, press 1 on your smartphone. If you disagree, press 2. This technology exists, ladies and gentlemen. There actually is an app for this. I'm going to ask you, do you think we ought to go to zero-based budgeting? There's a bill sitting on the House floor to go to zero-based budgeting. Nobody's voting on it because it'll gore a lot of people's oxes. But you know it's what we have to do. Please press 1 for yes, 2 for no. You're going to press 1 for yes. And I'm going to ask you a series of questions week after week after week to force pressure of the citizens of this nation on the political class, because pressure works. That's the only way that bill got through. And we got to keep the pressure on so fundamental reform occurs at the VA and everywhere else.
Absolutely.